Great. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
I'm doing good. So when do you guys usually start getting it going? Do you guys
Honestly,
wait?
whenever you're all ready.
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh, I'm not waiting. Okay. But I'm gonna introduce myself. My name is Brianna. I work at the College Legal Clinic, and what we do there is that we refer college students with legal aid for them to receive referrals. So if you're looking for civil, criminal justice, or any type of legal aid, then we can help you with that. But today we're going to talk about leasing. And we actually do have an attorney that deals with leasing if you do find yourself in a dilemma. But hopefully from our little special host, Kyle, he'll actually guide you to not actually have to encounter these type of predicaments that you may be in. So if he can introduce himself and what he does and just, yeah.
Yeah, my name is Kyle Wachuku. I'm a real estate agent, leasing agent, and property manager for WRC Realty, centered in San Bernardino. Also CSUSB alumni. I just graduated last year, so when Brianna reached out, I'm here to help.
Thank you for coming.
No problem.
Thank you. So, Kyle, you do this for a living. So, what are the steps to signing a lease? Because I know from when I signed my first lease, I was actually 18, and I didn't have any credit or anything of the sort. So, I did have to have a co-signer. So, do I need any qualifications, or what are the steps for it?
Well, leasing is very interesting because it's going to be a little bit different depending on who you're going through to get the lease done. If you're going through a property management company, it'll be different than just a landlord who's just leasing their property, say, on their own, right? So over here at WRC Realty, the way we screen our applicants for leasing is you look to see if they make 2.5 times the income. 2.5 times the rent in total income. So say the rent for the bedroom or apartment you want to rent is $1,000. We want to see if you at least make $2,500 every month. So it just kind of shows that you can afford the rent. We also do a credit check, a background check, and a rental history check to check for past evictions, any past judgments on your record. Anything that just shows a weak payment history can be a hindrance. And in those cases, typically you have an increased security deposit. A security deposit is a fee you pay initially in move-in that will cover any type of damages. Maybe the landlord will receive on a property during your occupancy. The security deposit should be refunded after the end of your lease. Assuming that you left the property in good condition, you should get a full refund. If not, they'll deduct, whatever damages and losses they took from the property from your security deposit and give you what's left. But yeah, so typically if the screen comes out a little bit weaker, then we will increase the deposit and move in. And with lower credit, we would need a cosigner. So if your credit is below, say, 600, you'll most likely need a cosigner at most companies.
Thank you. Okay, so when you do look at a lease, I know my attorney that I work with, she makes sure to be cautious of certain things. What should we be cautious of when we are signing a lease?
I would say just being aware of what you're going to be responsible for. So utilities, what utilities are you going to be responsible for paying each month on top of the rent? Because a lot of times people don't really calculate the utility bills. They just look at the rent only, Most of the time if it's an apartment, you'll probably just be liable for water and trash. Usually the landlord pays for gas and electric in apartments. If it's a house, you're probably required to pay all the utilities. So that's one thing you want to take into account. Another thing is CPI. We have new rent control laws in California now, which states that rent can't be increased more than 5% of the annual rate each year, plus CPI. So you want to look on a contract and see how much. Really, you can't go over 10%, but you just want to know exactly how much they can increase the rent each year, which is that 5% of the annual fee plus the CPI. So basically, the economy is doing better, and they feel like people are making more income, they can actually increase your rent a little bit more. So that's the number you kind of want to look at. Another thing is maintenance. You want to see how that is handled with the property. I have some friends and people I know who have rented properties, say from just straight directly from a landlord. Maybe there's renting a room out or something, and a lot of times our maintenance issues don't really get handled correctly because the landlord may not even want to fix maintenance. They may have the tenant be responsible for it, or they may not just have the funds to do so. So you want to make sure that if you do have issues with the property, that those things will be addressed accordingly. Um, what else? And the thing about leases these days is there's such a shortage of housing that it's very competitive, right, to get into these properties. So a lot of times, people don't have the opportunity to really go through the lease as much as they will probably like to make sure it works for them. So a lot of these questions you're gonna have, you're gonna want to ask these before you even start the rental application, so you know exactly what you get into. Because if you wait until you have to sign that, make that moving cost, pay the moving cost, it may be too late because, like I said, you're competing with a bunch of other applicants who are trying to get the same place you are. And if the company doesn't accept holds on deposits, then it can be challenging. So I would say if you have questions, you need to definitely ask, the leasing agent or.
So when it comes to that, what kind of questions do you wish that your client asks you, or like what gets asked a lot of you when you're going with the client to sign a lease?
A lot of times it has to do with utilities. Sometimes they ask about, is it okay if I have a pet? In our company, that's fine. You just have to add an additional pet deposit to your down payment. Sometimes people will ask about like when they get the security deposit back, which should be within 21 days, of moving out. Sometimes people want to know, can they leave a lease early? What is the procedures for, say, if you want to only rent for 6 months, but we're only doing a year lease, how would you get out earlier? Would you have to pay for the remaining months of that lease? So those are all things that you definitely want to know going into a lease. And those are some of the more common questions we get here.
So for your office, if you do want to leave your lease early, how much is the fee? Or because I know some rental properties, you could actually, if someone else goes in for your place, then you don't have to pay a fee. So for yours, how does that work for your guys's?
Well, so we manage properties for different landlords. So different landlords will go about it differently.
Oh, okay.
If you give a good enough notice to so for instance, I'm working with a client right now, she's buying a home, right? With her current place she's renting, she gave them a 5-month notice. Just let them know she's gonna be moving out, she's purchasing a home. The landlord was fully understanding and didn't really hold her liable for the remaining months because he had a 5-month period to fill that vacancy, to advertise the property beforehand. So the issue really arises when you're trying to break out of that lease on a short notice. The landlord doesn't have a contingency plan set up to get someone else in your position. So it does end up costing them. So they may have you pay for the a couple months after you move out, just because just kind of like a cost for damages, because you weren't supposed to move out before the contract date,
right?
And you didn't give them adequate time to prepare to do so. So it's really different for us on a case-by-case basis, based on the landlord.
Okay. Was there any advice or tips or anything that you would like to relate to our students, so when they do sign that lease, they have the confidence in doing so, that they don't have to feel so much pressure on their shoulders when they're doing it?
I would say number one thing is go take a look at the property first. Make sure it's something that you like. Make sure it's something you really want to do. Get second, third opinions. Like I said, a lot of times you don't really have time to really just look at the lease or take it home and have other people look at it because the properties are going so fast these days.
Right.
You have to come in, just sign the papers and get out, and just hope you get it. So you want to ask a lot of questions before you get into even submitting the rental application or paying that fee. I would recommend having more money than you think you would need put aside for moving. Sometimes people come to us and they have, say $2,500 and they're ready to move in, but something pops up on their credit history or something, and now they need an extra, $500 or $600 because of an increased deposit. So whatever number you have in your head that you think you're going to need for moving, it's probably going to be a little bit more than that in most cases. So, you know, just be prepared for expenses you probably weren't thinking of. I would recommend having a co-signer already, just in case you can't qualify on your own. Just have somebody ready that can co-sign for you, you know. Those are all very important coming into a new lease.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate you coming out and giving us the guidance into signing a lease. We do appreciate that. And if you can, you could actually put your office and all that inside our little Zoom group chat. And then
Yeah, I'll do that.
thank you. And again, we actually, like I said, we do have an attorney that specializes in landlord tenants, and she actually sent me an email to relay to the students. So a big one, her biggest rule is, Kyle actually spoke on it, the lease is very long and sometimes you don't have really time to read over it. But if this is your first lease ever, she says to read it. It's fairly long, but she says that you should sign and review it before signing a lease, and always look for your terms to see if it's month to month or is it to lease, because they have varieties of them. And always see the tenant's obligations. So like you said, you're obligated to how the house is when you moved in, it should be the same and you should see the landlord's obligations to see if he's reliable. If he says that he's paying for something, then that's what he has to pay for. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. If that's the lease says, that's what the lease says. And lastly, she says to really look at, like he said, early termination causes. Because if you do want to terminate your lease, because things do pop up and sometimes you just can't live where you want to live, and you need to be aware before signing it. And that's what she says. Her name is Linda Lindsay. She's an attorney that specializes in landlord and tenant issues. So that's from the College Legal Clinic, and we do want to thank Sage and Annalise. Yeah.
Alanis, sorry.
Thank you for letting the College Legal Clinic, and thank you, Kyle, for participating in the first leasing event.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Was there anything you needed to say, Annalise?
No, I feel like I learned a lot. If any of the students have anything that they want to ask, feel free to.
Any questions? Any more advice, Kyle, or you got it? What you needed?
I think I hit the most important topics, you know. Other things can probably be talked about after you sign a lease, you know, probably minor things, but I do want to go back on, looking at the term of the lease. Is it, like you said, is it month to month? Is it 1 year? Is it 2 years? Does it revert to a month to month when the lease ends? You know, so those are things you want to pay attention to.
Thank you.
Okay, so if nobody has any more questions, I appreciate you guys joining. Thank you so much. I learned a lot. For any of the students that weren't here at the very beginning, if you could private message me, send me your Coyote ID just so I can keep track of everyone that came on. If nobody has any questions, then I think we can wrap up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having
Thank
me.
you guys for joining.
Great. Thank you again, Kyle.
No problem.
Bye.
Good job, Linda.
Thank you.
Proud of y'all. I'm gonna save the recording too. I'm gonna post it on the Facebook. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.